Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Today, inshallah, we're going to discuss demand, supply, and market equilibrium. And in this case, we are going to start in the definition of demand. The major question is, what is demand? Demand is a willingness to buy or to purchase something, and the ability. So the demand is a willingness and ability to purchase something in a particular period of time. So it's a willingness and ability. If the consumer has a willingness and ability to buy a car, in this case it's called an effective demand. But suppose that you are a consumer and you have a willingness to buy a car, but you don't have an ability, you don't have enough money to purchase this car. In this case, it's called ineffective demand. There is no effective demand in this case. So we have two conditions for the effective demand. Number one is the willingness to buy, and number two is the ability, and vice versa. If the consumer has ability or has the ability to purchase the car, and at the same time he doesn't have the willingness to buy this car, in this case there is no effective demand. Right? So this is the idea or the concept of demand. So we have two conditions for the effective demand. Right? Okay. When we talk about demand, we are talking about four main points or four main things. Number one is the law of demand. Number two, the demand schedule, the demand table, and the last point is the demand function or the demand model. We will take an example about the demand. It's a mathematical example, and then we will go to derive the demand curve and we are going to discuss the determinants of demand. Right? So in the first case, or the first step, let's go or take an example about demand. Suppose that we have the following information about the demand for gasoline in Palestine or in the Gaza Strip. And the prices, we have prices and a quantity demanded for gasoline. Prices or price per shekel in New Israeli shekel, and the quantity demanded for gasoline. $10, $15, $20, $25, $30, $35, $40. This is the prices of gasoline, or the price per liter of gasoline. And the first case is 10. As you see, we have increasing the prices. The quantity demanded, you will see it like this: 200, 180, 160, 140, 120, and 180. If the prices of gasoline decline or increased, as you see, from 10 to 15, the quantity demanded of gasoline has declined from 200 to 180. And these are points we have a points here. Points. Point A, B, C, D, E, F, G. This table is called the demand schedule, which illustrates the negative relationship between the prices of gasoline and the quantity demanded of the same good. So as you see, when the prices increase, the quantity demanded has declined. Now we are going to derive the demand curve. Prices of gasoline and the quantity demanded of gasoline. Prices 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. That's it. And the quantity demanded 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140, 160, 180, 200. Now we are going to derive the demand curve. At point A, the price per liter of gasoline is 10 shekels. At 10 shekels, the quantity demanded was 200. So this is point A. When the price increased to 15, the quantity demanded has declined to 180. So 15, 180. This is point B. At point C, 20, 160. This is point C. At point D, 25, 140. This is D. 30, 120. F, 25, and 100. C, D, E, F, and the last point is G. At this point, the price is 40 and the quantity demanded is what? 80. If we connect these points together, we will reach to the demand curve. So we are going to connect these points together. This diagram is the demand curve. This is D. Demand curve. As you see, the demand curve is a diagram illustrates the negative relationship between the prices and the quantity demanded. When the price is increased from 10 to 15, the quantity demanded has declined from 200 to 180. Right? So the demand curve illustrates the negative relationship between, or the inverse relationship between the prices of gasoline and the quantity demanded of the same good, right? Which is called the demand law. Demand law. Demand law is a statement shows or illustrate what? It illustrates the negative relationship between the prices and the quantity demanded. So the demand law is a statement illustrates or shows the negative relationship between the prices of the good and the quantity demanded of the same good in a particular period of time. Right? Okay. Another type is, another subject or another topic is the market demand. How could we calculate or how could we derive the market demand? The market demand is the summation of the demand for all consumers in the market. So suppose that we have 2 consumers or 3 consumers and they consume chicken. And suppose that consumer number 1 consume 5 kilograms per each day, every day for chicken, and the other one consumes 6 kilograms. The summation of the quantity demanded or the quantity purchased, in this case, is the quantity demanded for the market as a whole at a specific price. So let us derive the market curve. So to derive the market demand curve, we are going to assume that we have only 2 consumers in the market. Consumer number 1 and the consumer number 2. And in the last case, we are going to derive the market demand as a this is the demand curve for the consumer number 1. Consumer number 1. And this is the consumer, the second consumer number 2. If the price of a chicken is 5 shekels in the market, this is the price of the chicken. And this is the quantity demanded for chicken for the consumer number 1. And this is the demand curve for the consumer number 1. In this case, if the price is 5 shekels, suppose that the quantity demanded of a chicken is 10 kilograms a week of a chicken. For the consumer number 2, for the second consumer, suppose at the price 5, the quantity demanded for the consumer number 2 is 7 kilograms QD of a chicken. The prices of a chicken. Now we are going to derive the market demand. The demand for the market as a whole. It's the summation of the quantity demanded for the consumer number 1 and the consumer number 2, 3, 4, and so on. And at a specific price. So at price number 5, at P, if the price is 5 shekels, in this case, the QD for the market as a whole equals the quantity demanded for the consumer number 1 plus the quantity demanded for the consumer number 2. So QD for the market as a whole is or equals QD1 plus QD2. For the consumer number 1, the quantity demanded for chicken is 10 units, 10 kilograms, plus 7 which is the quantity demanded for the consumer number 2. So it would be 17 kilogram for the market as a whole. So in this case, at the price of a chicken as 5 shekels, this is the demand for the market as a whole. It would be 17. This is the demand curve for the market as a whole. It's called the market demand, right? Is there a problem so far? So as you see, we have the demand for the consumer number 1, the demand for consumer number 2, and we have derived the demand for the market as a whole, right? Okay, let's go to discuss the determinants of demand. Determinants of demand means محددات. And the major question is, what are the determinants of demand? Who can give us the determinants of demand? For example, for the determinants of demand. Yes?
Yeah, the first one, the number of population.
Number of population, thank you. So, we have many factors affect demand. Number 1 is the number of population. So let's go to the determinants of demand. Number 1 is the number of population. Determinants of demand. Number 1 is the number of population. If the number of population increased, the demand for good would what? Excellent. So when the number of population increase, this leads to an increasing in demand for goods and services. In this case, we have a rightward shifting of demand curve. So we have a rightward shifting of demand curve. So suppose that the demand for chicken or meat was like this. Demand curve, price of meat, quantity demanded of meat. This is D1. An increasing in the number of population leads to an increasing in the demand curve, in demand. So we have a rightward shifting of demand curve. So the demand curve will go to the left, to the right, D2, and vice versa. If the number of population declined, as a result, maybe sometimes there is a war, or something like this. If the number of population or migration maybe, if the number of population declined, this leads to a reduction in demand, a leftward shifting of demand curve. So in this case, we have a leftward shifting of demand curve from D1 to D3. In this case, we assume that the prices of meat is still constant, right? In this case, we assume that the prices of meat is still constant, and the change would be only in the demand curve, right? Or the determinants of demand. This is the factor number 1 which affect demand. Number 2, what else? Yes. Income. What about the effect of income?
Income increase.
Yes.
Demand increase, and that affects rightward shifting on the quantity demanded for the consumer.
have another question. If your income increases as a consumer, what would happen to your demand for the frozen meat?
Will decline.
Why?
Because
The frozen meat is an inferior good. Yes. So we have to distinguish between two types of the goods. Number one is, it's called the normal good, and the second is the inferior good. So let us, the factor number one, or the determinant number two, of the demand is your income, or the consumer income. Consumer. It has two effects, or we have two types of effects of the income. When your income increases, leads to increasing your demand on the normal good. Increasing the demand for the normal good. And we have an example of the normal good, which is the fresh meat. Fresh meat. If your income increased from 2,000 shekel a month to 4,000 shekel, this leads to increasing your demand on fresh meat. It's called a normal good in this case. So, and vice versa, if your income declined, the demand for normal good would decline for the fresh meat. Yes. In the first case, the demand, when your income increased, the demand would increase. So we have a rightward shifting of demand curve from D1 to D2. This is for what? For the fresh meat. So in this case, when we are talking about the normal good. This is the price of a normal good. This is the fresh meat. And your fresh meat. This is okay. So we have a rightward shifting of demand curve. If your income increase as a consumer or decline, this leads to a declining or decreasing for the demand for the normal good, or the normal goods like the fresh meat. So we have a leftward shifting of demand curve, right? So as you see, we have a positive relationship between income and the demand for normal goods, right? So when your income increased, the demand for normal good increased. So in this case, we can call it, there is a positive relationship between income and the demand for normal goods, and vice versa. We have it's positive. Minus positive. Decreasing in income leads to decreasing in the demand for the normal goods. Minus, it would be positive relationship between your income and the demand for the normal goods. The second point is when the good is inferior. Inferior means like the demand for frozen meat, or the second-hand clothes. Maybe number two, or the point number 2 in this case is the relationship between your income and the demand for inferior good. Inferior good, as I said, or as I mentioned, the demand, increasing your income, leads to a reduction or a declining the demand for frozen meat. Frozen meat in this case is inferior good. This leads to a leftward shifting of demand curve for the frozen meat, right? So this leads to a leftward shifting of demand curve, or the demand for the inferior good. So we can illustrate the analysis like this. Where is Phil? This is day 1. When your income increased, the demand for the frozen meat as inferior good would decline. So we have a leftward shifting from D1 to D2. This is the prices of frozen meat. And this is the QD of a frozen meat. Right? So, as you see, we have an inverse or a negative relationship between income and the demand for inferior goods. When income increased, the demand declined. So the final conclusion would be negative, right? And vice versa. If income declined, this leads to an increasing in the demand for inferior good. Like this second-hand clothes. So in this case, we have a rightward shifting of demand curve to D3. What are the other? We have another determinant of demand. What is? Yes.
Expectation for future.
Expectation about the future, or expectation for the future. So the third determinant of demand is expectation for the future, or about the future. Expectation about or for the future. And here we have to analyze two things. Expectation about what? The prices, and what? Income. Thank you. So, number one is expectation about income. And number two, expectation about prices. For you as a consumer, if you expect that your income would increase by the next month to be $3,000 instead of $1,000, in this case, your current demand would increase, right? So, if you expect that expectation about increasing income in the future leads to increasing your current demand. Increasing your current demand. So we have a rightward shifting of demand curve, or the current demand curve, right? So this leads to a rightward shifting of demand curve. And we can illustrate or show the diagram like this. This is D1. Increasing, or if you expect as a consumer that your income would increase, your current demand would increase. So we have a rightward shifting to D to P, QD. But we are still assume that the prices are constant. Right? Right. And the second case, for sure, the vice versa. If you expect that your income would decline, this leads to, in the future, the current demand would decline. So we have a leftward shifting of demand curve. What about the expectation about the prices for the prices? If you expect that the prices of flour would be 300 shekels after 1 month or 2 months, your current demand would increase. So if the consumer expects that the prices of the good would increase, in the future, the current demand would increase. So if you expect that the prices of a flour would increase, in the future, this leads to increasing your current demand. So we have a rightward shifting of demand curve, right? And vice versa, sure. So as you see, there is a positive relationship between expectation for income and the current demand. Positive and positive. Negative and negative, it would be positive. And as well as there is a positive relationship between expectation about the prices and your current demand. Right? Okay. Is there a problem so far? Okay. What else? No, I will give a chance for someone else. Yes. The prices of other goods. Thank you. The prices of other goods. This is number 4, I think. The prices of other goods. Now we have 3 examples. Number 1, meat and the chicken. Meat and the chicken is an example of, or for, 2 substitute goods. Thank you. سلعتين بديلتين. 2 substitutes goods. 2 substitute goods. Now, let us suppose that the prices of meat has increased. The price of meat has increased. If we have an increase in the prices of meat, this leads to increasing the demand for chicken. Right? Because it's a substitute good. We can replace chicken by meat. So this leads to an increasing the demand for chicken. This means that we have a positive relationship between the price of the good and the demand for the substitute good. Right? So the demand for chicken would increase. So we'll shift to the right. This is the chicken's market. This is the chicken's market. QD of a chicken, P of a chicken. This is D1. We have a rightward shifting for the demand for chicken. To D2. But in this case, we assume that the prices of a chicken is still constant. صح? Okay. And vice versa, if the price of meat decline, this leads to declining the demand for chicken. And we have a leftward shifting and the demand curve. What else? This is the example number 1. Number 2, we are going to, we have another example related to the complement goods. Like what? Car and the fuels. Thank you. Tea and sugar. Number B, it's called the complementary goods. Complementary, like the fuel and cars. These two goods are complement goods. So the relation is a complementary. Complement goods. If the prices of fuel increase, the demand for cars would decline. So, when the prices of fuel increase, this leads to a declining in the demand for cars. So the demand for cars would will shift to the left. So we have a leftward shifting of the demand for cars. So the demand for cars would shift to the left. This is D, QD of cars, prices of cars. We have a leftward shifting of the demand for cars, right? And vice versa for sure. When the price of fuel decline, the demand for cars would increase. We have another type of relations between the goods. It's called what? Yes. Independent goods. Independent goods means there is no relationship between the prices or between these two goods. They are independent. Like the prices of salt and the demand for cars, maybe. The prices of bread and the demand for tractors, or the prices of chairs and the demand for laptops. They are independent, or independent relation. There's an independent relationship between these two goods. So the last case is the independent goods. C. salt, and laptops and cars. Okay. If the prices of salt increase, the demand for cars would not change. There is no change on the demand for cars if the prices of salt increase. So it's called independent relationship. So when the prices of salt increase, this leads to no change in the demand of or for cars. Right? What else? Yes.
Tastes
and preferences. Thank you. So the last determinant of demand is taste and the preferences of the consumers. Number 5, or the 5th determinant of demand is the taste, the consumer tastes and the preferences. Preferences. If the consumer's tastes go toward the Kia cars or Hyundai cars, in this case, the demand for Hyundai cars would increase. So, if the consumer's tastes go toward Hyundai cars, the demand would increase for this type of the cars. Right? So in this case, we have a rightward shifting of demand for the Hyundai cars. Right? Right. And vice versa. Right. Let's go to another topic, which is the difference between a change in the quantity demanded and the change in demand. Change in the quantity demanded and a change in demand. Change in demand versus a change in a QD. When you hear the change in demand, change in quantity demand, sometimes you can't distinguish between these two terms. But there is a completely different, these two terms are completely different. In the first diagram, we are going to analyze the change in the quantity demanded, and the second case, or the second diagram, we will explain the change in the demand. Change, number 1, change in QD. Number 2, the change in demand. The first case, this is the demand curve. P, Q, D, A, B, P1, P2, QD1, QD2. increasing, decreasing. Number 2, the change in demand, D1, D2, yes, D3, P, QD. Change in the quantity demanded is a movement along the same demand curve from A to B or B to A due to the change in the prices. So, the change in the quantity demanded is the movement along the same demand curve from A to B or B to A as a result of the price change. Yes, along the same demand curve. As you see, when the prices increase, the quantity demanded decline. But we are still along the same demand curve. But the change in demand is a full shifting of demand curve to the right or the left as a result of the change in one or more determinants of demand, like the change in income, a change in the tastes and preferences, maybe the prices of other goods. Yes, and the number of population. All these determinants, the change in one or more of these determinants with a change D, or will has a rightward or leftward shifting of the demand curve, right? Yes.
We talked about changing the prices.
Yes, alone. So, when the price is increased, the quantity demanded would decline for the same good, right? And here, we assume that the prices of the good is constant. But we have a changes in the determinants of demand, right? Okay. Let's go to the second side of the market, which is supply. As we said, or as we mentioned, that when we talk about demand, for sure we are talking about the consumer or the consumer behavior. But now we are going to talk about the producer or the seller or supplier on another table. Supply. When we talk about supply, for sure we're talking about the producer behavior or the seller's behavior. As we mentioned also that demand is a willingness and ability to purchase something. When we were talking about demand, we explained that demand is a willingness and ability to buy or to purchase something. When we talk about supply, for sure the same idea, but it's related to the producers. Supply is a willingness to produce, an ability to produce. It's a willingness, an ability to produce or sell something. Goods and services, yes. So, as you see, we have the demand, willingness and ability. If the consumer doesn't have, or he has a willingness and he doesn't have the ability, there is no effective demand. For the producers, If they have a willingness and they don't have the ability to produce, there is no effective supply. Right? The same idea, the same concept. So, if they have a willingness and they don't have the ability, there is no effective supply. If they have the capacity, if they have the ability to produce and they don't have the willingness, there is no effective supply. Right? Let's go to derive the supply curve by the supply schedule. Supply, we have a supply law. The supply law illustrates the positive relationship between the prices and the quantity supplied. As we talk about the demand, we have a supply's law, or the law of supply. The law of supply illustrates the positive relationship between the prices and the quantity supplied. If the price is increased, this leads to increasing the profits. Right? So if the price is increased, leads to increasing the profits. More profits would encourage the producers to produce more. This would encourage producers to produce more and more. This leads to an increase in the quantity supplied of the goods. QS means the quantity supplied. So, as you see, we have a positive relationship between the prices and the quantity supplied. If the price is increased, the profits increased. This would encourage the producers to produce more and more. This means that their willingness to produce has increased. Right? So, as you see, this leads to finally, the final conclusion would be an increase in the quantity supply. Let us take an example and go to derive the supply curve and analyze the determinants of supply curve. We have the following example: prices and quantities. Prices, point, P, prices, QS. QS means quantity supplied. Suppose this is the prices of gasoline, and this is the quantity supplied of gasoline. 10, 15. Oh, sorry, yes. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. This is 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. And the quantity supplied was full: 80, 100, 120, 140, 160, 180, 200. As you see, when the price is, or at point A, the price is 10 shekels. The quantity supplied is 80 liters of gasoline. When the price increased from 10 to 15 shekels, this would encourage the producers to produce more, from 80 to 100 liters. So we have an increase in the prices leads to increasing the quantity supplied. Now let's go to derive the supply curve. This is the diagram shows or illustrates the positive relationship between the prices and quantity supplied. P of gasoline, QS of gasoline. P Q 20 40 60 8 100. At the first point, at point A, the price is 10, the quantity supplied is 80. At 10, this is point A. At point B, 15 and 100. This is point B. C, D, E, F, G. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. If we connect these points together, we reach to the supply curve. This is S. S means the supply curve. So this diagram illustrates the positive relationship between the prices and the quantity supplied. If the price is increased, quantity supplied increased. So this diagram illustrates the positive relationship between the prices and the QS. Right? Okay. What are the main determinants of supply? Yes. Yes.
The number of producers.
The number of producers. Now we are going to discuss the determinants of supply, which are determinants of supply. Number one is the number of producers or sellers. If the number of producers increased, the supply would what? Increase. Yes. So we have a positive relationship between the number of producers and supply. Number one, if the number of sellers increase, this leads to an increasing in supply. So we have a rightward shifting of supply curve. We have a rightward shifting of supply curve. Right? So, as you see, here we have S curve, S, P, QS. This is S1. If the number of sellers increase, supply curve would shift or will shift to the right. This is S2. And vice versa if the number of sellers declined. This leads to a reduction in supply and a leftward shifting of supply curve. So we have a leftward shifting of supply curve, S3, if the number of sellers decline. Right? What is the second determinant of supply? Yes. Technology. A new technology. If the companies or the factories have a new technology, the production would what? Increase. So supply would increase. If we have a new technology, this leads to increasing the ability to produce, and the production would increase, and supply would increase as well. Right? So this leads to increasing in supply. So we have a rightward or leftward shifting of supply curve, a rightward shifting. So we have a rightward. So we have a rightward shifting from S1 to S2. Right? Like, what is the third determinant of supply? Yes.
Production.
The cost of production. Thank you. The cost of a production. So number 3 of the determinants demand is supply is the cost of production. The cost of production, like the wages or the sellers of the stuff or the workers. Like the wages, the prices of raw material, maybe prices of material of machines, prices of machines, or the prices of or the cost of raw material, cost of raw material. If the wages of the worker increased. Number 1, if the wages increased, as you know that the wage is one of the cost of production, and the labor workers are one of the factors of production. So increasing the wages leads to increasing the cost of production. This leads to 2 effects. Number 1, reducing the ability to produce. Right? So it leads to a reduction of the ability to produce. At the same time, when the cost of production decline, the profits would decline as well. So the profits would decline. At the same time, the willingness to produce would decline as well. To produce. When the willingness decline and ability to produce decline, supply would decline for sure, because as we mentioned that supply is a willingness and ability to produce. So the final conclusion would be a reduction in supply, and we have a leftward shifting of supply curve. Right? And the same logic and the same idea for the increasing the prices of machines. Increasing the prices of machines leads to increasing the cost of production. The willingness and ability would decline, so supply would decline. In this case, we have a leftward shifting of supply curve. Is there a problem so far? Who has a problem? Yes.
We can say price of production, of factors of production also.
Yes, yes, for sure. The prices of the cost or the factors of production is the cost of production or the cost of the factors of production. Because the wage is the price of workers or labor. The price of machines is the cost of machines. The cost of raw material is the prices of raw materials that you purchase when you produce. Yes.
Can we add technology to cost of production?
Technology, no. No. If we talk about the prices of technology, yes. But in the technology as a whole, as a technology, no, it's a one factor helps to increase the production. Right? But the price of technology, yes. If the prices of technology increase, for sure supply would decline. But here, talking as you see, we are talking about the price of machines, or sometimes the prices of technology. If the prices of technology increase, this leads supply a leftward shifting of supply curve. What is the fourth factor or determinant of supply? Yes. Seller's expectation. Yes. Expectation. If the producer expects that the prices of his product would increase after 2 months, if the producer, suppose that you are the producer and you produce flour, produce something else, forage maybe for the poultry, it's a fodder for the poultry. Suppose that you expect that the prices of forage or the prices of flour would increase after 2 months. What about the current production?
Would increase. If I expect the production, the prices of another same goods, particular goods will increase my production, and the same goods will increase. About this.
Why?
To get broke.
Okay, but I'm talking about the future expectation about the prices and the current production would decline for sure. Because if you expect that, if you are as a seller, a rational seller, if you expect that the prices of forage means alaf, forage for animals, would increase after 7 months. This leads to a reduction in the current supply because the sellers or the rational seller or the rational producer aims to increase his profits. So, increasing expectation, the increasing prices of forage after 7 months, the current production would decline, and the supply or the current supply would decline as well. Yes, about the future. If you talk about the future, it's something else. We have a something else. The future price is related to the quantity, the future quantity supplied, not supply as a whole. صح? But we are talking about the prices or the current price, the expected prices in the future and the current supply. So we have a declining, we have a leftward shifting of the current supply curve. Right? So we have, this is S1, S2 for the current, leftward, yes. Thank you. S2, we have a leftward shifting of supply curve for the current supply curve. But I will come back to your point. What would occur to the supply in the future supply? Yes, if you expect that the prices of the good or the forage would increase after 7 months.
I increase my production for this, for example, forage, for this goods.
Okay, but here we are talking about supply or the future supply or the quantity supplied.
Quantity supply.
Excellent, excellent, because the prices of the forage, the future prices of forage affects the quantity supplied of, or the future quantity supplied, not the supply as a whole.
The elements of supply.
Yes, yes. All right. Okay. What else? What is the fifth factor or determinant of supply? Yes.
Tax or subsidy.
Yeah, taxes and subsidies. Yes, the government. It's related to the government policies toward the economy. So number 5 is the government policies toward taxes and subsidies, or taxes and subsidies. Taxes mean ضرائب, subsidies means إعانات. If the government decided to increase the taxes, the production taxes or the sales taxes. Excellent. Decline what? Decline the ability. Excellent. The ability to produce. Sorry. Yes. Thank you. And the cost of production would increase because the tax in this case is one of the costs of production. So this leads to also a reduction and increasing the cost of production and what?
Declining profits.
Excellent. This leads to a declining the profits. And yes, for sure, when the profits decline, the production of goods and services would decline. So this leads to a reduction in the production or output, and supply would decline. A leftward shifting of supply curve, and vice versa for taxes. Let's go to the subsidies. Suppose that the Palestinian government decided to support the farmers to produce, or to encourage them to produce tomatoes, cucumbers, pepper, and other eggplants. In this case, the capacity or the ability for the producers would increase and supply would increase. Right? So, if the government decided, or the Palestinian government in Gaza decided to support the farmers by providing them with subsidies, by providing them with raw material, maybe they can provide them with workers. So this leads to increasing their capability or ability to produce, and the willingness as well. Because the cost of production would decline in this case. So we have a declining the cost of production, increasing profits, increasing the production, as well as supply would increase. So we have what? A rightward shifting of supply curve. Right? Is there another factor or determinant of supply?
Price of other goods.
The prices of other goods. Thank you. Prices of other goods. Number 6 is the prices of other goods or other related goods. Prices of other related or produced goods. To understand the idea, let us suppose that you have a factory or you have a company and you have 2 production lines. You have a factory and you have 2 production lines. Production line 1, you produce cars and you produce tractors. You have 2 production lines. The first one is producing cars, and the second one you produce tractors. And suppose that you produce 100 tractors a month and 100 cars a month. If the prices of tractors increased, prices of tractors increased, this leads to increasing your profits if you increase your supply of tractors or your production of tractors. So increasing the prices of tractors leads to increasing the profits if you produce more tractors and reduce your profits if you produce more cars. So in this case, you would prefer to produce less cars or lower number of cars. Sorry?
Isn't the price change?
In the first case, yes. In the second one, we are talking about the supply for the cars market. Yes. So, as you see, when the prices of tractors increased, we are talking about the supply for cars. So in this case, supply for cars would decline. يعطيكم العافية. إن شاء الله المرة الجاية بنكمل.